Hi guys, this is TSK here, Kimberly. Thanks so much for joining me. So today's discussion is about discussion with your higher self. So I got a question by a woman the other day, and she was asking me basically how everything was going with the channel. And my response was great, as long as I can get my egoic, fearful self out of the way. To which she had a really interesting response. I've, been really getting really frustrated, really annoyed with that egoic self who keeps coming in and saying, you can't do this, who are you? Just fear in general. And her response was, not only did I need to make amends with my egoic self, not only did I need to start liking my egoic self, but I needed to fall in love, was her exact terms, and she's a life coach, with my egoic self. I want to show you my shirt because it's so cute. So, which I thought was interesting, right? Because it's not typically what we think. We think we need to get it out of the way. We need to, we get so frustrated, at least I do. And so that brings me to the topic of today, discussions with your higher self. So this is a technique I've been using for quite some time now, but in the recent past, it's just gotten more and more valuable. So essentially, it's a discussion between my higher self and my egoic self, if I'm to break it down pretty easily. And how it goes is something like this. I'll put on a piece of paper, M for me. See, this is already... You can put whatever you want to put because it's all of a sudden you're claiming identity, right? So, but I would do something. M for one, me, ego, E for ego. I don't even like that title. U for universe is how I've been doing it, but I can see how that's problematic already. Anyway, so I would write something like, M. I don't want to do this, I'm afraid, I'm exhausted, I feel terrible. You, Kim, breathe. All is well. All is well. You can do this, you got this. M, what should I do next? First, and then you. First off, you need to calm down. So anyway, that's just a little, it can get pretty specific, and so that's a technique I've been using. And one thing that I have come up with in terms of that relationship between the ego and the egoic self and the higher self, again, don't get too stuck on those words, is... this notion of kindness, this notion that it brought up the idea, a dog whisperer episode. I don't know if you like the dog whisperer. I love the dog whisperer. I have a dog. He's amazing. So when he mentioned one time in an episode that the dog was not a leader, this particular dog was not a leader. He was just forced into that position because nobody else took it upon themselves to be the leader. Nobody in the pack took that leadership role. So the dog was forced into that position, which otherwise he wouldn't have taken. And that came to mind when I was thinking about this conversation, because I feel like that's a bit like the egoic self, that it never really wanted to take control. It was never really its place. But because our higher selves weren't taking the reins, weren't taking that leadership role, that the egoic self kind of said, okay, then I'll jump in and I'll do it. And for that we should be grateful. And I thought that was a really great analogy, because it continues. The more that person in the pack, the more that person in the pack started taking on that leadership role, the more that dog would naturally go back to its follower role, which it wanted to be in, which was its natural place, natural order. So isn't that interesting? I think that's an amazing analogy. So the more our higher self takes over, the more our higher self starts saying, it's okay, hon, I got this, and starts taking actions in that, not just saying it, but actually doing things to communicate to that egoic self that, yes, I got this, this is under control, the more the egoic self will subside and go into its natural role, which is of servant, not of master. Isn't that great? I thought that was, wow, it's Sunday. Oh, I'll match really well with the copper behind me. So I thought that was a really great analogy. So as you step into that higher self, as you start making decisions, as you start making choices, as you start taking action, the egoic self will naturally realize, I don't need to take the reins on this. I can go back to what I was naturally meant to do. So I thought that was interesting. That's the discussion for the day. I called it discussions with your higher self, but that could be really anything that could, I'm going to maybe think of a better title for that. But for right now, it's discussions with your higher self. This is TSK. Kimberly, love you. Never far. Get yourself some coffee.